Hello everyone, my name is Carolina. I am the founder of SheLeads, a community that connects female-led startups with the human and financial capital they need to succeed. In this pitch deck construction webinar, I share all the golden nuggets of wisdom that I have accumulated over the years of fundraising and investing in businesses to help you start, build, and present your pitch deck to investors. Finally, you will notice that this webinar has been recorded using AI product, in this case Clipchamp. We love testing new AI products, so if you have any recommendations, please share it in the comments. I work with founders, like you, helping them pitch their company stories. I get to see hundreds of decks and talk to dozens of companies every month. The most common problem I see is founders getting caught up in the slides, the details, and the rules when they focus on the story. That is why I have created this webinar, to guide you through the process. I base my pitch deck construction process on tangible examples of decks that successfully raised funding. Companies like Airbnb, Intercom, and Buffer have released the pitch decks that they used to raise their first rounds of funding, and if you look at their structure, you can find the same set of slides. Angel investors and venture capitalists have also learned to expect a standard pitch deck as the first filter when evaluating a company. Let's begin. Welcome to Pitch Deck Construction Plan webinar. There are so many wrong notions about pitch decks that I felt it was time to make something to help get people on the right track. This is a basic tutorial that will hopefully guide you in the right direction. Book a free strategy call with SheLeads to review your pitch deck, or to ask us anything about your fundraising plan. Now, let's get started. The term pitch deck is broad. I've seen it used to refer to a sales deck. You could even use it to refer to a movie pitch. Still, there are quite a few ways investor decks can be classified. Mainly we have the demo day deck, the email deck, and the meeting deck. This webinar focuses on the email deck. You still have to have your verbal pitch ready for a face-to-face introduction. But at this stage, with this pitch deck, all you want to hear from the investor is, "I would like to know more." If you are interested in learning about the other two, join our 30-day fundraising challenge and get ready for demo days and meetings with investors. Now let's discuss what pitch deck is not. Unlike what so many websites want you to believe, a pitch deck isn't the key to raising money. And a pitch deck should not be a priority when planning a new business, or planning to raise money for the expansion of an existing business. Your product, your strategy, your team, and your business model are important in ensuring you will successfully raise the funding you need. Planning and execution are the most important parts of the fundraising process. The decision to invest will not be based on your pitch deck, it will be based on your business plan, strategy, and ability to execute. That does not mean, however, you should not work hard on your presentation. The pitch deck flow and format, in this situation, matter a great deal, and can improve your chances of getting an investment. With the key word here being, improve. The pitch deck alone is not enough to receive funding from the investors, but it's amazing how much more positive, or responsive, investors can be to well-designed and well-organized slides. Especially if you have a consumer-facing product, where user experience will matter for its success. If you don't have a good designer on your team, find a friend who is a freelance designer, or a pitch deck design agency like SheLeads, to help you turn your presentation into something visually appealing. Put some extra effort into this, as it will pay off many times over. Why make a pitch deck? When you get introduced to an investor, they will ask you to send them a pitch deck. This is the deck that gets you a meeting. And probably the one that needs the most amount of work. The email deck is also used when applying to an accelerator, or submitting your deck to a competition. What are the must-haves of an email deck? Well, it needs to be self-explanatory, because the investor will consume it on their own, without your voice or narration. It will also be the first impression an investor will get about your company, so it needs to look stellar. It's designed to get you a meeting, so you don't have to tell everything about the company, just enough to create attention and curiosity, and get called to the next stage of the process. Here's an extra insight. If you use tools like DocSend to share your deck, it will allow you to track the investor's activity on your slides. This way you will know in which slides investors spend the most amount of time. According to TechCrunch, VCs spend an average of 3 minutes and 44 seconds on one deck. You can't assume that you'll change people's behaviors, so if your deck can't be consumed in 3 to 4 minutes, chances are investors will skip through some of the content, or just give up after a certain number of slides. That's why we always encourage entrepreneurs to build decks that can be wholly consumed in 4 minutes. In summary, the investor deck should achieve 2 things. 1. It needs to tell your and your company's story. 2. It needs to convince the investor that they can make money with this. And it needs to do that in less than 4 minutes. Most of the time investors will drill down into some of the aspects of your pitch and ask you hard questions. Investors put money into a startup in the hope of getting a big return. And so, they're going to be paying close attention to your ability to deliver on your promise of building a successful startup. After reading your pitch deck, if the investor is interested, they will propose a meeting. For the meeting, you will have to have your meeting deck ready. We discussed the meeting deck in greater detail in the 30-day fundraising challenge. We will share link to the workshop below. At this stage, if you meet with the investors, the meeting is called the first stage meeting. After that, interested investors will engage in due diligence examinations of the founder and of the proposed business. If you successfully pass the initial due diligence process, you will be invited to a second stage meeting, followed by an offer letter. The process is stressful and can drag on for months. However, if you feel like the pitch deck is your only chance to dazzle an investor, and so you make it far too optimistic and packed with unsupportable targets, the investors will back away, and you will lose all credibility. Remember, investors became investors by being able to make and protect money. You are not talking to a bunch of fools. Make sure you have researched your numbers, and that you are able to back up your assumptions and forecasts. Now let's discuss the content and how to make your deck memorable. The presentation should have a great opening, a captivating story with logical progression, and touchstones that tie the story to the real world. A lot of advisors will tell you that you have to make the pitch deck memorable. However, memorable doesn't always translate to profitable. The reality is that investors are bombarded with pitches every day. So what makes a pitch deck stand out? A combination of compelling metrics, a proven minimum viable product MVP, and an engaging story can all work together to make a strong impression among investors. Thus, if you really want to stand out, you must first, do your homework. And after that, relay the right information in the right way. Let's start with gathering your metrics. Here are the most important factors and metrics you need to know. 1. Proof of concept. How much traction do you have? How have you proven a demand for your product? 2. Product or market fit. How does your product fit into the overall market? Is there room for growth? Calculate the following metrics. O. Total available market, TAM. O. Market share. Market value. 3. Profitability metrics. Depending on the type of startup, requirements may differ between month-over-month revenue and growth rates. All metrics should be confirmed with VC contacts. Here are some examples by industry. E-commerce, $1 million monthly recurring revenue MMR. Consumer apps, 50,000 daily active users or 25% month-over-month growth. SaaS, $50,000 to $150,000 MR and 100% year-on-year growth on monthly recurring revenue. Marketplace, $500,000 to $1 million in gross merchandise value GMV, or 30% MOM growth in GMV. 4. Processes for scaling. You might only be based in London today, but what about 1 to 2 years from now? Will your manufacturing process change? What type of financing will you need to expand? 5. Customer acquisition strategy. What is your average cost per customer? And always be realistic with your key metrics. Investors do not like to waste time. They immediately dismiss an opportunity if the numbers don't work. You have one shot at impressing your investors, they will usually not give you a second chance. If you can't explain your business strategy and make a great pitch deck, if you can't even produce a great PowerPoint, why should an investor meet with you? How are you gonna make a great product if you can't even make a simple PowerPoint look halfway decent? Relay the right information in the right way. Make sure the slide deck is a coherent leave-behind. Graphics, charts, and screenshots are more powerful than lots of words. Consider it a framework around which you will hang a more detailed version of your story. Create a pitch that matches you and how you want to represent your company. There are lots of templates online for you to choose from. So put time into creating your slides, refine them, get the perfect message, and then go out there and give it your best shot. Now let's discuss what goes into the body of the pitch deck. There is no fixed format or order, but the best pitch decks follow a simple and easy-to-follow formula. In fact, pitch decks typically include the following components: problem, solution, business model, competition, founding team, marketing plan, fundraising. We've gone through the trouble of looking at the most popular pitch deck references and concluded that those elements are the absolutely most essential slides your document must have. Now let's dive into the details. A pitch deck is a summary of your company story. You are using slides to give arguments on why this company is incredible. To achieve that, your startup story has to follow a recognizable presentation storytelling resource that we call the 3-act structure. In the first act, it's critical to engage your audience, capture their attention, and establish the status quo. In the second act, your story should be developed to build excitement about the business opportunity by providing numbers that are as irresistible as they are irrefutable. The third act is where the rubber meets the road, and you deal the killer blow, making your point about why investing in your company is a fantastic opportunity. 1. First section, status quo. The first slides should provide the company name, logo, and an elevator pitch. Text should be 5 to 7 descriptive words of the product or service. You may want to select hero images that showcase a person actively using your product or service. The problem should be summarized in 1 to 4 bullet points that are easy to understand. 2. Second section, how we are disrupting the market. We are meeting the hero. The solution should be presented in a layout that shows 3 key benefits of your product or service. The business model is a key slide in your sales presentation. Lay it out carefully, clearly, and with as few words as possible. Name your competition and outline why you can beat them. Point out their weaknesses and talk about why your company has the advantage. Creating a founding team slide lets the investors know your company has the skills to reach milestones. 3. Third section, we rock, and you should invest in us. The marketing plan slide is another key element. Your potential investors will want to know, how are you going to get those millions of dollars in revenue? Be sure to lay out short and long-term customer acquisition strategies that answer that question. Focus on the metrics of unit economics of how much it costs to acquire a customer and the LTV, lifetime value of customer. These metrics are the heartbeat of any company. The final product. We can talk a lot about slides, slide order, and story, and we will, but in a nutshell there is several key questions that your pitch deck needs to answer. These are the questions. What opportunity have you discovered in the market? What have you built to tackle it? How does it work, and who is it for? How much are you growing, and will you continue to grow? And why are you and your team the team to change that status quo? That's it. It's easier said than done though. We see founders getting lost in the technicalities, the market size, the business model, and the financial projections, when what you are doing should focus on answering that set of questions. So, let's combine the 3-act structure with the questions to create our pitch deck. First, the setup. This is the intro, the cover, and the status quo question. What's happening? Your solution slide becomes the plot point. Now, we change the direction of the story. Second, rising action. This is your product section. We are meeting the hero. Once we get into the market, how the market is reacting, and how big the market is, the stakes are high. Your business model is also described here. Then 3, the crisis. Your competitors and how you plan to beat them. The climax of the story, your team, and your competitive advantages, or your ingenious rollout plan, are going to be the resolution to this conflict that you unearthed. And the finale, that's when you get to ask for money. Let's translate your story into slides. Act 1 Intro section, cover slide. Avoid big long slides packed with words. Information such as, I'm presenting to so-and-so on X date, is unnecessary. The investor knows the day, she knows her name, and does not need all that information. The cover slide must have your company logo. Let the investor form a mental connection between the logo and your company. Now grab their attention with a 5 to 7 word 15 seconds intro or description of what you do. Simple, self-explanatory, so short that you read without even trying. This tagline is not a marketing tagline, it's a very brief description of what your company does. Act 1 Intro section, problem and the business opportunity. Here you give a quick business overview. This is not a 5-minute pitch. This is 2 sentences. We build widgets for the X, Y, Z market. Or, we sell services to help do X. That lets the investors know the context. It gives them the armature for the whole thing you'll be going through. Next, the problem should be summarized in a 1 to 4 fashioned bullet points that are easy to understand. Most great companies solve global problems. Uber solved taxes. Slack solved excess emails and meetings. Dropbox solved file syncing across devices. There's a bit of an aha moment if you get this slide right, if you can point out a problem that people experience regularly, that's standing right in front of them, that's so obvious, and yet they haven't seen it. This slide can also make your whole pitch fall apart when you come up with questionable statements that the investor can't get behind. If they disagree with you about this premise, then you might lose them here. For example, I've come across a fair share of social media startups that begin their problem slide by saying, current social media is boring. That's an opinion, not a fact. You don't want to get into an argument at this point. Some companies aren't necessarily solving a problem, but instead tackling a business opportunity that has arisen. Examples here are mobile games, which certainly don't solve a problem, they are just jumping on a business opportunity they discovered. Here is an example of a pitch deck getting started slide. We all know that most new businesses fail within 5 years. It's tough out there. While a welder knows a lot about welding, they may not know a lot about business. The girl who is great at programming probably doesn't understand how to read a profit and loss statement. The woman who launches a clean tech service probably doesn't know how to raise money to launch her business. The couple who wants to open a SaaS company has a great idea, but lacks the experience to see all the obstacles they will face. Everyone who starts a business assumes they will be successful. But only 20% will actually survive for more than 3 years. This is a real problem. Do not mention your idea in that first intro slide. Your opening slide needs to be all about the problem. Act 2, the hero. Now it's time for the solution slide. Think of the solution slide as a mirror to the problem slide. Remember, this is the plot point. This is when you break the status quo. Great solution slides are also concise. They don't involve technology or features, it's not time to talk about the product yet. We are presenting our thesis, What if instead of doing things like this, we do things with this new approach? Act 2, the product section. This is the moment. It is time for you to introduce the hero, your product, and explain how it will solve the problem your target customer is facing. The investors want to know your product, but remember, this is not a product pitch or sales pitch. They don't want to know all the ins and outs, just what the heck is it? Show them something that lets them know why people are going to buy it. Then you can expand on your business idea. After that, it is time to showcase the product. Act 2, product section, product slide. You can approach the product slide as a short video demo, a how does it work diagram, or even a series of product screenshots. These slides will probably not be too different from your marketing landing pages. You can get some inspiration there. Act 2, product section, feature benefit slide. I like to keep this to 5 or 6 benefits tops, and notice how I use the word benefit instead of feature. By removing the jargon and adding a real-life use scenario, the statement becomes more impactful. Act 2, product section, audience use cases. Not everyone includes this into their deck, but I think it's a critical slide, especially if you're a seed or Series A company. The idea of this slide is to prove that you understand who the product is for. So many companies don't know the answer to this question, and that is a common deal breaker. Act 2, product section, market validation process. This is an optional slide. You have to answer the why now question. A market validation slide should be included to support products where adoption could be a challenge. For example, on their 2009 pitch deck, Airbnb had a market validation slide to support their thesis that people would be willing to stay at strangers' couches. Act 2, product section, business model slide. Once the investors know what you're selling, tell them how you make money on it. For every X you sell, you get Y, or services of Z. They want to know what the business model is on a per unit basis, or for the actual product you're selling. This is one of the easiest slides to solve, and one of the slides that many entrepreneurs get wrong. This slide is not about projections. It's not about how much money you could make if you get 1 million customers. It's just about how you make money. Is it a subscription? You don't need to lay out every single plan, and its ins and outs. In my experience, that should be changing regularly, as you experiment with different combinations. Just tell investors, it's a X dollar subscription, with or without trial. Done. Is it a product or a service? Tell investors what the price is, or maybe the average order size, and give them an idea of the margin. Is this a 30% or a 60% margin product? Is it a marketplace? What percent do you charge per transaction? 10%. Done. Act 2, product section, milestones and roadmap slide. I think this slide functions as an excellent bridge between the product, what it is, how much it costs, and what's coming in the next section, which is the numbers and the traction. To me, an ideal roadmap slide goes over some of the major highlights in your product evolution and your company history, and then it talks about what you intend the product to become over the next few months. We are not making financial projections yet. This is the product section, so we are talking about product vision, not numbers. Don't get revenue projections mixed in here. Act 2, market section. The investors want to know whom you're selling to in terms of customers, and if you have any special relationships that will help you, whether it's a distribution relationship or a producing partner. Again, validation. This helps to say you're bigger than just one little thing over here. The investor wants to know the size of the market. Why is this market worth getting at? Act 2, market section, traction slide. This is a slide about numbers. Think of a number as a photo, and a chart as a story, a film. Saying that you've made $1 million in total revenue sounds cool, but what investors want to know is your journey getting there. How much of that revenue came in the last month? How much was that month compared to the previous one, And the one before that? What breakthroughs did you make that completely changed the inclination of that chart? There's no faking a traction slide, it is what it is, and that's why it's so important. Act 2, Market Section, Go-to-Market Slide. How will this money that you are about to raise accelerate your growth? We can answer this question by covering these parts. What have you done to get here? What are you doing that shows promise? What are you going to do next? Remember, rounds of capital usually fund 18 to 24 months worth of operations, so investors are looking for a growth plan, a marketing plan, of how you will get the company to the next fundable milestone. The most common mistake I see on go-to-market slides is lack of focus. I can't count the number of go-to-market slides that say, we will do social media, SEO, and influencer marketing. That's what everybody is doing. It doesn't make you unique. It makes you generic. A great go-to-market slide talks about 2, maybe 3 concrete channels that you are using to grow your customer base, and that you will continue to use. Act 2, Market Section, Market Size TAM Slides. Previous slide talked about how big this company is getting over the next year. Now it's time to answer, how big does the company get, in total? The concept of that is, TAM or Total Addressable Market, but it's a bit foreign to many of us. Using a SaaS, software as a service, example, your market is not the SaaS market. That's a $200 billion plus market these days. But it doesn't matter to you how big the SaaS market is. Saying that you'll own 1% of the market is just an oversimplification. Startups are exciting to investors if their TAM is at least in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Again, it's not about inflating your numbers. It's about this self-assessment: is my company's potential significant enough to get investors excited? Act 3, Why Us, section. In this section, you want to answer: why are you the best person for the job? And how is your startup better than the competition? The investors want to know exactly what your competition does, and how you fit into the whole operation. They want to know how you and your business are special. They want to know, how are you going to prevent them from eating your lunch? Show them the battle, and the tools you will use to win it. It's time for some bad news. In this section, the hero is facing her enemies, the competition, and she must defeat them. Everybody has competition. There's never been a company with no competition, even if the competition is the old way of doing something. Act 3, Why Us, section, Competition Slide. You can approach this as a simple business grid chart, or a simple summary of your core competitors. Act 3, Why Us, section, Competitive Advantages and Secret Sauce Slide. When you talk about competitors, it is more than comparing features, more than comparing what your pricing is, it's about showing that there's something that you understand about the market that others don't seem to get. That's what makes great companies, unique insights that you have discovered that these established competitors haven't figured out yet. Act 3, Why Us, section, Infrastructure, Underlying Magic Slide, optional. For products with a strong technological component, or when the tech infrastructure is one of their core differentiators, it's also relevant to include an underlying magic slide. Act 3. Why You, section, Founders Slide. Now it's time to give background on your expertise. You want the potential investor to believe in you. Explain your accomplishments and track record. This is very important. Sometimes the whole deal depends on how much the investor likes you. They are investing in you. They are depending on you to make this company profitable. I have seen great plans rejected because the entrepreneur had no people skills. And I have seen investors go for weak plans because they believed in the vision. Now explain how your team complements your skill set. Show the investor that your team has the skills to get the startup to $1 million in revenue. If you are building an app, getting to $1 million in revenue requires marketing, development, UX, and business operations. If you are building a B2B SaaS platform targeting enterprises, you need engineers, business development, and sales. I can't count the number of decks I've seen, where the current team doesn't have the necessary skills to reach scale. You don't raise money to recruit people. You form a team, and then you raise money. Story finale. The ask. First, let's set the scene, financial overview. You can't do a VC pitch without giving the investors your financials. They want to know a year or two back, or as long as you've been in existence. And they want to know 3 or 5 years forward. At least 3. Moreover, investors want to know how that business model, on a product basis, will translate into a company model. How many widgets will you sell? You make X amount per widget. They want to know what the driver is. You can say something like, we'll have 1,000 customers this year and 10,000 the next, our revenues will do this and that. That gives the investors the whole picture for the next several years into which they are investing. And they want to know how the money from the investment will help you get there. You're going to open an offshore plant in China, you're going to spend it all on sales and marketing, you're going to go to Tahiti for a log holiday. The financials slide is straightforward. If you've been operating, we want to see the last financial year of data, and then, for everyone, 3 to 5 years of financial projections for your company. Founders typically add a simple table with their SG&A, COGS, CAPEX, and revenue with a final profit margin and percentage number, requiring you to do some financial modeling. However, that's an article for another day. Story finale, the ask, fundraising and the use of funds slides. Finally, here comes the ask. This is where you tell the investors how much you want. You're looking for 5 million, but at what valuation? 2 million? 100,000? What's the money in so far? Who invested? I hope you invested yourself. If you can't invest in your own thing, why should I? The fundraising slide should cover how much money you are raising, and be super clear about that next fundable milestone we have talked about. A seed round is supposed to last until a Series A. Closing a round takes about 6 months. So this round should last enough for you to get to Series A status. Plus an extra 6 months to complete that round. You'll see a lot of decks that talk about this round will fund 18 months of operations. And that's not necessarily a bad slide, as long as the math behind that number responds to a fundable milestone. It's not about time. It's about metrics. Be specific. Say I am seeking an investment of £2.5 million. And you get a 35% equity stake. Be clear about the offer. Do not shy away from stating your numbers, and avoid ambiguity. Don't say I am seeking £2 million to £5 million to start this venture. The first question investor will ask you is it 2 or 5 million? Although it may feel comfortable to offer a range, if you feel you can't get to the high range of it, at least you want to raise the low number. The range makes you look like you are hedging your bets, or that you have not thought hard about how much money you actually need to raise. Instead, I always recommend that you state you are raising a specific number. Be sure and be very clear about the rules for this investment. You must address all of the terms of the deal for your investor. Be clear. Do not be open. Terms can be adjusted after vetting. Be conservative in what you project as the return on investment. Do not break these rules. You simply can't just be open to everything investors throw out at you. That shows that you don't know what you are doing. Learn to negotiate, and hire a good startup lawyer. Stick to the facts and do not overestimate. Don't say things like, I will make you a 300% return, if you don't think it is possible. Put it in realistic terms and say, this is the estimated return, it might be higher, but you can determine that when you review the specifics of my plan. Explain your use of funds precisely. Do not seek money to cover debts, taxes, or money for yourself. If the business is in more debt than it can handle, it's a lousy investment, unless you had nothing to do with the debt. Investors don't want to pay bills. They want their money to buy things that will grow the business. Never say I need $60,000 to cover my salary. Investors are not interested in paying you. Your salary should show on the projected budget. Now, in general terms, explain how the money will be used over time, and when the investor should see big improvements to the business. Make sure you raise enough capital to cover at least 12 to 18 months of your going forward operations. Otherwise, you will constantly be in fundraising mode, and not focused on building out your business. We encourage you to meet with a financial advisor or accountant to help you develop more accurate financial projections based on the complexity of your business and optimize your costs. Reach out to our team if you need help with financial forecasts, modeling, and accounting. Finally, you simply say something like this. I know there is a lot to review, and I do not expect a decision now. I have a detailed plan that I would like to review with you at your earliest convenience. You can see the books and dive deep into the plan. What I've shown you today is a conservative view of my plan. Once you see the specifics, I believe you will be interested in working together. Can we set up a time to begin the vetting process? That last question is your close. Don't skip it. That's all, folks. That's a lot of information to process, and figuring out some of these slides will require you to sit down and iterate time and time again. A good sanity check, after you finish each iteration, is to go back to those core questions. 1. Is this deck telling your company story? 2. Can investors make money with this business? Can the company grow enough for that to happen? 3. Can the deck be consumed in under 4 minutes? The pitch deck is a small part of the process of raising money. Put the time into your business plan. And only when the plan is ready, get the pitch deck together. And if you need help, get it. Having a plan reviewed and a pitch deck prepared costs very little compared to what is at stake. That's why people hire professionals to sell their products. Use professionals if you can. The path to startup investment can be treacherous. For startups, securing the first round of funding is a daunting process. Doing so requires founders to take what is often a very complex idea, product, or solution, and boil it down to dollars and cents. Founders do that for investors, who for the most part only care about how quickly they can make their money back. SheLeads is here to help. Get in touch by scheduling an intercall and joining our free online community.